Welcome back, fellow internet adventurers. Get ready for another wild ride through Reddit's strangest stories. We're diving deep into the internet's quirkiest corners. Grab your popcorn and join us on this adventure. Don't forget to hit subscribe and like. Let's get started. I'm a 38-year-old guy who tied the knot with my 33-year-old wife about 2 years ago. We had been dating for 3 years before deciding to take the plunge into marriage. I was a bit hesitant about it, but I wanted to make her happy, so I agreed. Around a year into our marriage, we decided to start a family. My wife was particularly keen on having a baby. However, the journey to conception wasn't easy. We faced numerous challenges, and it took a toll on my mental health. Frustrated and overwhelmed, I decided to get myself tested. The doctor dropped a bombshell on me. I was sterile. The news shattered me. Despite not being initially gung-ho about having a child, the idea had grown on me, and the realization that I couldn't be a father was devastating. What made matters worse was my wife's behavior during this trying time. She became mean, and I tried my best to cope with it. However, it became too much to handle. A few days after learning about my infertility, I mustered the courage to tell her the truth. I wanted her to know that I was the reason we couldn't conceive, but fate had other plans. Days after I found out about my sterility, my wife dropped a bombshell of her own. She was pregnant. I was taken aback, shocked to my core. She was blissfully unaware of my internal struggle and started celebrating immediately. In an attempt to keep up the facade, I joined in on her happiness. However, the very next day, I got tested again just to confirm my sterility, and the results were consistent. Now I found myself at a crossroads. If I'm not the father, then who is? The unsettling thought that my wife might be cheating on me loomed large. The medical procedures my wife needed for artificial conception were expensive, and as the sole breadwinner, she couldn't have pursued them without asking me for the money. The idea that she might be cheating crept into my mind, but it seemed so bizarre and awful that I didn't act on it immediately. In the days that followed, my wife, oblivious to my internal struggle, was busy planning a grand party to announce her pregnancy. While she radiated joy, I was shattered inside. I had to keep a composed exterior, not letting my turmoil show, as I was determined to get to the bottom of this bewildering situation. I didn't share the ordeal with my family or friends. It felt too personal and uncomfortable to disclose. I couldn't bring myself to talk to my wife either. Time had passed, and I needed to figure out who the father of her child was before confronting her. The fear was that if I confronted her prematurely, she might leave, and I'd be left in the dark. The revelation came on the day of the party, attended by family, friends, and even some of my coworkers. Among the guests was our 27-year-old neighbor, a model striving to make a name for himself. He was undeniably more attractive than me, and my wife had always shown a soft spot for him. They shared common interests and got along well, occasionally having dinners together. As he walked into our house on the day of the party, my wife's eyes lit up. They hugged, and it felt longer and different from her embraces with other guests. While no one else seemed to notice, I sensed something had changed, suspecting there might be more to their connection. I excused myself to the bathroom, but went to our bedroom instead, determined to find answers. I accessed my wife's laptop. Checking her phone earlier had yielded no suspicious results, but her laptop had been a challenge to get to. Whenever I asked what she was doing, she'd deflect, claiming to be working on her novel, which had been ongoing for months. I had respected her privacy, believing she was genuinely engrossed in her writing. My world had shifted, and I was now certain that her novel was merely a guise to conceal the true contents of her laptop. Luckily, there was no password to hinder my access. After some digging, I stumbled upon another email account she had been using alongside her real one. As I sifted through the emails, I was confronted with a cascade of confessions of love from my wife to our neighbor. The real kicker came in the more recent emails, where she revealed her pregnancy to him. He didn't take the news well, and communication seemed to pause as he contemplated ending things. However, my wife was determined to keep him. The most horrifying email unfolded her sinister plan. She had spoken to a friend who was a lawyer, concocting a scheme to file for divorce right after the baby's birth. The reason she had pressured me into having a child was to secure both alimony and child support. intending to run away with our neighbor a few months after the divorce for their supposed happily ever after. The disgust I felt reading that email was indescribable. Cheating was one thing, but the cold calculation to manipulate me and fund her secret life with our neighbor was beyond comprehension. Despite her excellent acting, I hadn't suspected a thing. Her apparent happiness now seemed almost disturbing. I shook off the nauseating feelings and got to work. I discreetly took several pictures of the incriminating emails on my phone before shutting down her laptop and returning it to its original place. The betrayal stung, but my anger overshadowed everything. The idea of revenge began to simmer within me, fueled by the depth of her deception and the lengths she was willing to go for her clandestine agenda. I had made up my mind to play along, letting her think everything was okay until I hit her with the truth when she least expected it. It might sound extreme, but I felt it was necessary to make her understand the hurt, betrayal, and frustration that had consumed me since discovering her dishonesty. For the next 9 months, I played the role of the perfect husband and soon-to-be father. It was challenging knowing she was lying through her teeth, but the more she pretended, the more determined I became to see my plan through. I attended every doctor's appointment, ensured she took her vitamins, and played the supportive spouse. Finally, a few days ago, my wife went into labor. I was understandably nervous, but I put my feelings aside and took her to the hospital alone. I had already called her parents, but deliberately left mine out of the equation to avoid unnecessary drama. While we waited for her parents to arrive, I chose that moment to drop the bomb. Once she was safely in the delivery room, I told her I was going to call our neighbor to be with her. She seemed surprised, insisting she didn't want a stranger present during childbirth. I smiled, showing her the results of my infertility test and the divorce papers I had filed just before her due date. As she sifted through the documents, still looking bewildered, I explained that I couldn't be the father and that the baby wasn't mine. I revealed the emails from her secret account, and in that moment, she grasped the reality of the situation. The look on her face as I walked out, leaving her to grapple with the truth, was something else. I thought I'd need medical attention myself. That's how fast my heart was pounding. Once outside, I called our neighbor to inform him of the situation and sped away. I even turned off my phone for good measure, driving until I reached a motel outside of town. I unpacked the bags I had stashed in my car weeks ago, prepared for this very moment. The next day, I woke up, turned on my phone, and found it flooded with messages from my wife and the neighbor. I didn't bother opening any of them. Instead, I responded to a text from my parents and brother. They deserved an explanation, and I told them I'd be heading home soon to lay out the entire situation. They needed to know the truth. I drove to my parents' house, where my brother was already there. They all looked confused and somewhat annoyed, which was expected considering I missed the birth of my own child and caused them to miss their grandchild's birth as well. I sat them down and explained the whole story, including the reasons behind my actions. I braced myself for a barrage of questions and accusations, but nothing of the sort happened. My dad only said he hoped nothing worse would come of it, and the others stayed silent. It was surprisingly calm on that front. That was a few days ago. Since then, my family hasn't said much, but my wife has gone above and beyond to accuse me of ruining her experience of becoming a mother for the first time. She's been trying to call and text me constantly since I left, but I haven't answered any of her messages. Even my neighbor texted me a few hours ago, saying my wife was really upset and that we should set our differences aside for her sake and try to work things out. The audacity of these people is astounding, acting like this is some minor disagreement. My neighbor mentioned that during her pregnancy, my wife supposedly started to fall back in love with me, which was a shock for both of them. He even suggested I give our marriage a second chance. I called BS on that. If she was really falling for me again, why is he still in the picture? I can't believe they think I'm that stupid. My wife is upset, but there's nothing I can do about it. She's mostly angry that I knew everything from the beginning, yet still chose to be with her and put up with the entire act. I keep asking myself, am I the jerk for staying with my wife throughout her pregnancy and misleading her, even though I knew the baby wasn't mine and that she'd been cheating on me with our neighbor? It's been close to a week since the baby was born, and I've been staying in a hotel. I haven't been over to see my wife, nor do I plan on going. She's still texting and calling me, though. I don't understand why, since I've made it clear that I'm not interested in speaking to her. I haven't blocked her yet, but I did block my neighbor, especially after he had the nerve to text me, reminding me that my wife is still hopeful and wants me to come back. I'm 100% sure he's doing this because they both want something out of the divorce settlement or alimony. Both of them are basically unemployed. I want to acknowledge that my wife chose to be a stay-at-home spouse, and that was entirely her decision. It wasn't my idea for her to quit her job after we got married. Back when we were dating, she worked, and I was supportive of that. But after we got married, she decided to quit, and I didn't mind since I earned enough to support us. However, the painful truth came to light when I discovered that her role as a stay-at-home wife included cheating on me behind my back. That I cannot forgive. I believe my lawyer can help me avoid paying alimony once we prove her infidelity. The evidence from her secret email account should make things more straightforward. I've saved all the emails exchanged between her and my neighbor, backed up both on my phone and laptop, so even if she deletes her account, I'll still have everything documented. It's been a few weeks, and my wife has decided to negotiate, clearly unsatisfied with the settlement I offered. What I put on the table was generous enough, covering her expenses during our marriage. I can't fathom what miracle she's hoping for. Yesterday, she texted me saying she had vacated the house. I went back home expecting some peace, only to find out that she had moved across the street to the neighbor's house. Now I'm stuck seeing them every day. I thought about returning to the hotel, but this is my house, and I'm not leaving. They won't make me uncomfortable enough to walk away from what's mine. I wondered why she didn't stay with her parents. It would have been a smarter move for her in the divorce case. While scrolling through a mountain of unread messages, I found one from her father. He apologized for her behavior, expressed strong disapproval of her actions, and let me know they had cut her off. That meant a lot to me, validating my feelings, and it almost brought me to tears. He also mentioned they were against her contesting the divorce. It's been about a month since the settlement negotiations began, and my wife's situation has gotten worse. I managed to prove her infidelity, making my case undeniable. She tried to throw false accusations my way, claiming I was an alcoholic and linked it to my sterility and her affair, but that was easily debunked. I quit drinking last year when we decided to try for a baby. Now it's clear her chances of getting alimony are slim to none. Recently, I witnessed her getting kicked out of the neighbor's house with her baby. I saw the whole ugly scene from my living room. When I saw him shove her out while carrying the baby, I rushed over, forgetting all the animosity. I couldn't let an innocent child suffer for something that wasn't his fault. By the time I got to the door, it had already slammed shut. I picked up the baby and grabbed my wife's hands, leading them back to my house. I called her father, who arrived within an hour to take her and the baby away. During that hour, both my wife and the baby were in tears, and I found myself calming them down. I wanted to call the cops, but my wife begged me not to, not wanting more trouble. She apologized profusely, admitting that she had lost her self-respect and morals in her desperation to be with the one she loved. She expressed genuine remorse, promising to stop negotiating and finalize the divorce as soon as possible. Despite everything, I don't regret being decent throughout this ordeal. I hope she eventually presses charges against him and finds some healing for herself. Anyway, goodbye for now, and don't forget to like and subscribe.